Dear friends, welcome to our channel. We are delighted to share with you different stories about love and betrayal from around the world. So now let's begin our story journey today. The large crystal chandelier under the spotlight reflected brilliant radiance, illuminating the living room of this detached mansion in Los Angeles. The air was filled with the aroma of fine wine and exquisite appetizers, as a family gathering to celebrate Serena's 60th birthday was underway. The crowd suddenly quieted down as Fiona stood in the center of the room, arm in arm with an unfamiliar man, her gaze moving among the crowd, finally resting on Garrett in the corner. "I want to introduce everyone to my new boyfriend," Fiona announced clearly, with defiance in her eyes. "I've separated from this waste of space." Everyone looked at Garrett in surprise. He just stood there quietly, his expression calm, then nodded slightly and took out his phone from his suit pocket to dial a number. "You can come in now," he said, his voice steady. The front door opened in response, and a young woman in a cream-colored haute couture dress walked slowly into the living room. Her demeanor was refined, every gesture revealing inherent elegance. Everyone's attention was drawn to her, and Serena even covered her chest in shock, her legs weakening, then promptly fainted beside the sofa. Amidst the chaos, Garrett walked to the woman's side and gently took her hand. Everyone understood that this seemingly simple family gathering was actually witnessing a turning point of fate. 3 months earlier, Garrett was in his office in downtown Los Angeles, handling the daily affairs of Novell Manufacturing. As CEO of this traditional manufacturing enterprise, he balanced the company's stable operations and future development. Although Novell was not an industry giant, it possessed core technology and a stable market in its professional field, with a substantial strength unknown to the outside world. Garrett's phone lit up with a message from his college friend Wesley. "Brother, I'm not sure if I should tell you this, but I saw Fiona with a man at Elevate last night. They looked very intimate." Garrett stared at the phone screen, something inside him beginning to collapse. He felt a pain in his chest, but quickly controlled his emotions. He and Fiona had been married for 5 years, and although Fiona's mood and behavior had been somewhat abnormal over the past year, he had never thought in this direction. Returning to their home in Beverly Hills that evening, Fiona was sitting on the sofa looking at her phone, merely lifting her head slightly when Garrett returned. "There's a business dinner tonight. I need to go out for a while. Don't wait up for me," Fiona said, rising to change clothes in the bedroom. Garrett nodded, watching his wife's retreating figure. They had met at a party of a mutual friend. Fiona was then a middle manager at a well-known marketing company, smart, ambitious, and full of expectations for life. In Garrett's view, she was the type of partner who could help him achieve greater success in business and social circles. They had sweet moments, but as time passed, Fiona seemed increasingly dissatisfied with their life. "I'm just attending an important social event. It's important for my career," Fiona explained, coming out of the bedroom wearing a red dress that was obviously new. Garrett noticed that the price of this dress was at least 4 figures, one of many luxury items Fiona had recently purchased. "Okay, be careful," Garrett responded, while recalling in his mind the scene Wesley had described. He felt a wave of cold anger spreading within him, but decided to learn more before taking action. After Fiona left, Garrett sat in the dimly lit living room, contemplating their marriage. He clearly remembered that 2 years ago, Fiona began frequently complaining that their lifestyle was too plain and lacked glamour. She believed Garrett's career was stable but lacking in distinguished social status and unable to satisfy her desire to enter high society. "Why can't we move to the neighborhood where Bill Gates or those tech tycoons live?" she had asked many times. "Couldn't your company try a little harder and go public? All our friends are talking about their stock options and IPOs, but you're satisfied with this kind of medium-sized family business." Garrett never considered himself a workaholic. He spent a lot of time on their marriage, taking Fiona on trips, attending social events she liked, and even learning about art and wine appreciation to accommodate her social needs. He respected Fiona's career choices, supported her development at the marketing company, and never interfered with her social circle. But in Fiona's view, none of this was enough. "Not everyone wants to become a tech tycoon, Fiona," Garrett had responded. "Novell has its own position and value in the industry. We may not be as eye-catching as those unicorn companies, but we solve real problems for customers and create stable jobs for employees." Fiona usually scoffed at this type of response. That's middle-class thinking. No wonder we can never enter the truly elite circles. In the following days, Garrett began to notice patterns in Fiona's behavior. Her business dinners and social events became more frequent. She returned home later and later, and there were even several occasions when she didn't return all night, with the excuse of staying over at a friend's house. What puzzled Garrett most was that many photos of high-end venues began appearing on Fiona's social media accounts, but she never mentioned her companions. At the same time, her participation in family life decreased significantly. They almost never had dinner together or watched movies anymore. Garrett was not the type to immediately accuse or explode. He preferred to calmly analyze the situation and then take action. After careful consideration, he hired a private investigator. I need to understand my wife's possible extramarital affair, but everything must be conducted within the legal framework, Garrett emphasized to the investigator. He provided information about Fiona's schedule and possible locations, but clearly stated that he did not allow any illegal wiretapping or privacy invasion. A week later, the investigator brought conclusive evidence. Fiona was maintaining an intimate relationship with a man named Dominic. Dominic was a well-known figure in the Los Angeles art circle, superficially running an art investment company and often appearing at various celebrity parties. Photos showed Fiona and Dominic in intimate contact on multiple occasions, including entering and exiting a high-end hotel in Beverly Hills. The investigator even obtained a video of them kissing in public. Your wife's boyfriend has some reputation in the circle, but insiders know his reputation isn't very good, the investigator added. His company appears to do art investment, but it's actually more like speculation. He uses his social network to attract investors, but the actual return rate is far below what was promised. Several investors have already begun questioning his operating methods, and there are rumors that he's involved in multiple art valuation fraud cases. The FBI has already started paying attention to him. Garrett thanked the investigator and processed this fact alone. It wasn't that he hadn't considered the possibility of Fiona's infidelity, but the pain of seeing the evidence with his own eyes far exceeded his expectations. He closed his office door, allowing himself to briefly release his emotions. Anger, betrayal, and disappointment swept over him. He smashed a glass on his desk and stood by the window for a long time, gazing at the city skyline. What made it more ironic was that the object of Fiona's betrayal was actually a scammer with a shiny facade. The high society she had always yearned to enter was actually just hollow bubbles. After calming down, Garrett began to consider his next step. He wasn't the type to cling or beg pathetically. For him, betrayal was a red line that couldn't be crossed. But he also didn't want to act rashly, especially when it concerned their common assets and the company's future. One Thursday evening, when Fiona again claimed she would be attending an important social event, Garrett decided to confront her. "You've been in very close contact with Dominic lately," Garrett said directly, his voice calm, but with an obvious chill. Fiona's expression froze, then returned to normal, pretending to be calm as she asked, "What are you talking about?" "I don't know any Dominic." "Stop pretending, Fiona. I know about your relationship, and I also know which places you've been to." Garrett pushed the photos taken by the investigator in front of Fiona. Fiona looked at the photos, her expression changing, but quickly adopting an indifferent attitude. "So what? You had someone follow me? Is this your so-called trust and respect? After discovering you lied multiple times, it's indeed difficult to maintain trust," Garrett answered. "I originally hoped my suspicions were wrong, but clearly they aren't." Fiona was silent for a moment, then suddenly laughed, this laughter making Garrett feel like he was facing a stranger. "You know what? I always felt you didn't understand me enough. Now it seems I'm the one who didn't understand you enough," Fiona said coldly. "Since that's the case, I won't hide it anymore. Yes, I'm with Dominic. He can give me the life and status you never can." "What status?" Garrett asked. "What can an art broker who's under investigation give you?" "You don't understand," Fiona exclaimed excitedly. "Dominic knows all the important figures. He brings me into circles that someone like you could never access in your entire life. Look at you, Garrett. All you know is your boring business in that small company, never knowing how to truly live. Dominic at least knows how to make me happy, how to make me feel the meaning of life." Garrett looked at this familiar yet strange woman, the last vestige of emotion in his heart also disappearing. He had once loved her, but now he only saw a person blinded by vanity and material desires. I think we need to separate for a while, Garrett said calmly, despite his inner disgust and disappointment. Separation? Fiona laughed coldly. Fine, that suits me perfectly. Anyway, I've already started planning a future with Dominic. His company is about to complete a new round of funding. We plan to buy a new villa in Beverly Hills. You can move to your mother's house first, Garrett said. I'll contact a lawyer to start preparing divorce documents. Fiona seemed somewhat surprised that Garrett would be so decisive, but quickly regained her arrogance. Suit yourself. Anyway, you'll regret it after I marry Dominic. Don't think about coming back to me then. Garrett looked at her coldly. That would be the least likely thing among all the things I regret. Fiona moved out that very night, leaving Garrett alone to face this suddenly empty house. Although he appeared calm and composed, his heart was actually filled with pain and anger. He paced in the empty living room until late at night, contemplating how their marriage had reached this point. The next day, Garrett met with his lawyer in the company's conference room. I need a fair but decisive divorce within California's legal framework, Garrett said. I won't fight her for property, but I also won't give up the part that's rightfully mine. I hope this process is as quick and clean as possible. The lawyer nodded. California is a community property state. Unless there's a prenuptial agreement, property acquired during marriage is generally split equally. We'll ensure everything is conducted according to legal procedures, while protecting your legitimate rights. Considering her unfaithful behavior, we might have some advantage in property division. Garrett thought for a moment. I don't want to make things too ugly. I just hope to end this relationship as soon as possible, and then each move forward. However, for company shares, I cannot compromise. The lawyer nodded understandingly. I'll draft the relevant documents and begin preparing the necessary asset proof. Are you sure you don't want to fight for more? Considering the circumstances, the court might lean towards you. Garrett shook his head. Property isn't the point. I just want to ensure my company isn't affected. I can compromise on other things. Back at home, Garrett stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, gazing at the distant city lights. He felt an unprecedented sense of relief. Although the pain was still there, he had decided not to be bound by this betrayed marriage any longer. He dialed his friend Wesley's number, briefly explaining the situation. I can't believe she did this to you, Wesley said angrily. Who is this Dominic? I know a few friends in the art circle. I can ask around. No need, Garrett answered. I just want to look forward, not get entangled in the past. So what are your plans now? Wesley asked, with concern in his voice. Garrett pondered for a moment. In the short term, focus on the company's new project. Our new material technology is about to achieve a breakthrough. If successful, it will completely change the market landscape. A few days later, Garrett's other friend Harlan called. I heard about you and Fiona. Are you okay? I'm fine. Actually better than I expected, Garrett replied, although his voice still carried a trace of weariness. That's good. Want to go for a drink? Harlan asked, but Garrett politely declined. What he needed now was solitude and work, not social activities. By the way, I have an important client who wants to meet you on Friday about the collaboration for that new material production line, Harlan added before ending the call. At the Grove restaurant, 7 o'clock, is that okay? Of course, Garrett answered, without much expectation for this business meeting. On Friday evening, Garrett arrived punctually at the agreed location. Harlan was already there, with a young woman sitting beside him. Garrett, this is Audrey, president of the Fertile Group. She's very interested in our new material technology, Harlan introduced. Garrett was slightly surprised. The Fertile Group is a globally renowned diversified investment group with extensive presence in both traditional manufacturing and emerging technologies. And this young woman before him is the only daughter of the group's founder, a Harvard Business School graduate, who recently took over the group's core business and was named by Forbes as one of the 30 under 30 elite. Pleased to meet you, Garrett. Audrey smiled, extending her hand. I've heard about your company's technological innovations, and I'm very much looking forward to today's exchange. During dinner, Garrett and Audrey had an in-depth conversation about industry trends and technological development. Garrett discovered that Audrey not only possessed an excellent business mind, but also had a profound understanding of the core technologies in manufacturing. which was quite rare among investors. I've always believed that true value comes from the ability to solve practical problems, not short-term market speculation, Audrey said. Your company's technology is precisely the direction we want to invest in. Garrett nodded. I'm glad to find a like-minded partner. In recent years, too many investments have only focused on surface data and short-term returns, ignoring the value of the technology itself and its long-term significance. After dinner, Audrey proposed, I'm attending a charity gala for the D&G Foundation next week. If you're interested, we could go together. There will be many potential partners there. Garrett hesitated for a moment. He knew that this type of event was precisely the high-end social gathering that Fiona had always longed to attend but never been invited to. Ironically, now when he no longer needed to please Fiona, such opportunities naturally appeared. All right, I'd be happy to go with you, Garrett finally agreed. He didn't know how this decision would change the trajectory of his life. In the following weeks, contact between Garrett and Audrey became increasingly frequent. They attended several business events together, discussed potential collaboration projects, and even shared a private dinner on an impromptu occasion. Garrett found himself attracted to Audrey's wisdom, confidence, and sincerity, and Audrey also clearly showed interest in Garrett beyond the scope of business collaboration. Meanwhile, through mutual friends, Garrett learned that Fiona and Dominic had made their relationship public, and Fiona was busy showing everyone her new life. She had posted many photos with Dominic attending celebrity parties on Instagram, each with text suggesting she had finally found true happiness and the life she deserved. Serena had also begun hinting in social occasions that Garrett had not grasped a good opportunity and boasting that her daughter had found a better destination. Serena is planning to host a 60th birthday party. Fiona hopes you can come too, Garrett's father-in-law said on the phone, his tone somewhat awkward. After all, you're not officially divorced yet, and there's no need for things to get too tense between family members. Garrett pondered for a moment, then answered, All right, I'll be there. This wasn't out of kindness or a desire for reconciliation, but because he had his own plan. After hanging up, Garrett dialed Audrey's number. There's a family gathering. I'd like to invite you to come along, he said, then briefly explained the situation. Are you sure? Audrey asked, with concern in her voice. This sounds potentially awkward. I'm sure, Garrett answered, his tone firm. But I need you to do me a favor. I want to teach certain people an unforgettable lesson. Sounds interesting. Audrey laughed. Tell me your plan. The day before the party, Garrett received an email from his lawyer confirming that the divorce papers were ready, just waiting for both parties to sign. He stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the suit he would wear tomorrow, with a peculiar calmness in his heart. Tomorrow, he would end this chapter and begin a new life. On the day of Serena's birthday, Garrett arrived alone at the party venue. Opening the door, he saw Fiona and Dominic standing in the center of the room, surrounded by a group of people, toasting. Fiona was wearing an obviously expensive dress, holding Dominic's arm, with a victorious smile on her face. Serena stood beside them, proudly introducing her daughter's new boyfriend to the guests. When Garrett walked into the room, the conversations quieted down. Everyone noticed his arrival, including Fiona, Dominic, and Serena. Fiona's smile became rigid, but she quickly regained composure, even walking towards Garrett with a hint of challenge. What happened next was exactly as described at the beginning. Fiona's public humiliation, Garrett's calm reaction, the mysterious phone call, and most shocking, Audrey's appearance. When Audrey walked into the room, the entire party quieted down, not only because of her stunning beauty and elegance, but because many present recognized her identity. For the Los Angeles social circle, Audrey, the heiress of the Fertile Group, was a true representative of high society, someone many dreamed of meeting but could hardly approach. Fiona's face instantly turned pale. Dominic appeared even more flustered. When Audrey naturally walked to Garrett's side, intimately taking his arm, Serena covered her chest, too shocked to speak, and finally fainted due to extreme shock. Amidst the chaos, Garrett calmly observed everything. He didn't immediately go to help Serena, but first walked to Audrey, whispered something in her ear, then turned to his mother-in-law who had collapsed on the sofa. Perhaps someone should call an ambulance, Garrett said calmly, with no concern in his voice. He looked at the shocked Fiona with cold eyes. How do you know Audrey? Fiona stammered, disbelief in her eyes. Garrett just smiled coldly, without answering. He looked at Dominic, who was trying to maintain composure, but obviously had lost his cool. "I think this party might need to end early," Garrett said calmly. "Serena doesn't seem to be feeling well." With that, he took out the divorce papers he had prepared beforehand and placed them on the coffee table. "By the way, this is the divorce agreement. My lawyer has prepared all the documents. You can have your lawyer check them. I hope to complete the signing before next week." Fiona stared at the stack of documents, unable to speak for a moment. She had never imagined Garrett would handle everything so decisively, nor anticipated his relationship with Audrey. Garrett took Audrey's hand, and together they walked out of that room filled with shock and envy, leaving a scene of chaos behind. After leaving Serena's birthday party, Garrett and Audrey remained silent in the car for a while. Finally, Audrey broke the silence. "Your performance tonight was truly impressive." Garrett shook his head. "I'm not proud of what I just did, but I don't regret it either. Sometimes, people need to taste the bitter fruits they've sown." "You could have chosen a simpler way to end all this," Audrey observed. "Why arrange such a scene?" Garrett looked at the flowing city lights outside the window. "Maybe because she chose to humiliate me in public, I wanted her to understand how that feels. But more importantly, I needed a clear ending, not just for her, but for myself." Audrey nodded understandingly. "Anyway, I'm glad I could help. Though next time you need me to pretend to be your girlfriend, I hope it's in a more pleasant setting." They looked at each other and smiled, both understanding that tonight's event wasn't just a carefully planned revenge, but an important turning point in their relationship. Meanwhile, Serena's birthday party had completely turned into a disaster. Serena was taken to the hospital for a checkup, and although it was just a momentary emotional fainting spell, this incident completely ruined the party atmosphere. Guests quickly dispersed, leaving only Fiona and Dominic facing the mess. "Was that Audrey fertile just now?" Dominic finally found his voice, asking in disbelief. "It seems so," Fiona answered, with obvious shock and envy in her voice. "How is it possible that Garrett knows her? Let alone, they seem to be." Dominic couldn't continue. "I don't know." Fiona suddenly raised her voice. "This is impossible. Garrett is just the CEO of a small company. How could he know the heiress of the fertile group?" Dominic was silent for a moment, a flash of calculation in his eyes. "Perhaps we don't know Garrett well enough." "Novell Manufacturing. I recently heard they're developing a new type of material that could be worth a fortune." Fiona's eyes widened. "What are you talking about?" "I heard it at an investor gathering," Dominic explained, but his tone was somewhat unnatural. "Someone mentioned that Novell might be about to reach cooperation agreements with several large companies, and the Fertile Group might be one of them." "Why didn't you tell me this before?" Fiona questioned, with an accusatory tone. "I wasn't sure if it was true," Dominic defended, "and this kind of news is usually market rumors, not necessarily accurate." Fiona's expression grew darker. "So, you knew Garrett's company might be very valuable, but you encouraged me to leave him?" "Wait, that's not fair," Dominic protested. "It was you who said you were fed up with Garrett and his small-time business. It was you who actively said you wanted to leave. I just supported your decision." They fell into an awkward silence. Fiona sat on the sofa, trying to sort out her thoughts. She had ridiculed Garrett's business as going nowhere, believing he could never give her the social status and wealth she craved. But now, Garrett was not only showing amazing business potential, but had also established connections with Los Angeles's most elite social circles. And his new partner was precisely the type of high society core figure that Fiona had dreamed of but never been able to access. "We need to find out more," Fiona finally said. "Tomorrow I'll contact some friends, see if I can learn more about Garrett's company." "Good idea," Dominic agreed, but his gaze was evasive. Obviously his mind was no longer on Fiona. The next day, at the hospital, Serena lay in the hospital bed, looking pale. Fiona sat by the bed, absent-mindedly flipping through news on her phone. "Was that really Audrey fertile last night?" Serena asked weakly. Fiona nodded. "It seems so. How could she be with Garrett?" Serena shook her head, not understanding. "Even if his company has some new technology, would that be enough to warrant the heiress of the Fertile Group getting personally involved?" "I don't know, Mom," Fiona said, with obvious irritation in her voice, "but I'm trying to find out." Just then, Fiona's phone lit up with a news notification. Fertile Group and Novell Manufacturing reach strategic cooperation. Invest in new material technology. The article mentioned that this cooperation was expected to double Novell's market value in the short term, and Garrett, as the company's CEO and major shareholder, would see a significant increase in his personal wealth. Fiona's hand trembled slightly. She passed the phone to her mother to read, and after reading, Serena let out a long sigh. "We misjudged." "Not just misjudged, Mom," Fiona said bitterly. "I handed over a husband with huge potential to someone else, and right at this crucial moment." "Maybe it's not too late," Serena suddenly said, a flash of cunning in her eyes. "The divorce isn't final yet, right? Maybe you could." "Could what?" Fiona interrupted. "Go back to Garrett? After publicly humiliating him and living with another man for months? Do you really think Garrett would forgive me?" Serena shook her head. "It's not about forgiveness. But business partners don't necessarily need an emotional foundation. Perhaps you could propose some conditions that would benefit him to make him reconsider." "Mom," Fiona looked at Serena in surprise. "Are you suggesting I use other means to salvage my marriage?" Serena shrugged ambiguously. "Darling, in this world, everyone seeks the deal that benefits them most. Garrett now has Audrey, but who knows if that's just a passing novelty. Perhaps you could remind him that, after all, you have 5 years of marriage as a foundation." Fiona shook her head. Although she regretted losing Garrett and the wealth and status that came with him, she hadn't fallen that low. "I won't do that. If Garrett chooses to be with Audrey, that's his right. Our marriage is over." Meanwhile, Dominic had also seen the news about Novell and the Fertile Group's cooperation. He immediately called Fiona. "Have you seen the news? We need to talk." That afternoon, Fiona and Dominic met at a coffee shop. Both appeared anxious and restless. "This changes everything," Dominic said straightforwardly. "Garrett is no longer the waste of space we can humiliate at will. He now has money, power, connections, and he has Audrey Fertile." Fiona continued, a flash of envy in her eyes. Dominic nodded, hesitated for a moment, then said, "I've been thinking whether our relationship is still suitable for the current situation." Fiona frowned. "What do you mean?" "Exactly what I said," Dominic said, his tone suddenly cold. "We're together because we have common interests and goals. But now circumstances have changed." Fiona looked at Dominic in shock. "Are you saying that now that Garrett has succeeded, has money, you're going to dump me?" "Don't be so dramatic, Fiona," Dominic said impatiently. "I'm just saying we need to reassess our positions. In fact, my company has faced some difficulties recently. I need to focus on solving these problems and might not have much energy to invest in our relationship." "Your company? What kind of difficulties?" Fiona questioned, suddenly realizing that Dominic might have been hiding something from her. Dominic avoided her gaze. "Just some routine cash flow problems. All startups go through this." "Are you sure that's all it is?" Fiona persisted. "I've heard someone's questioning your art valuations." Dominic's face darkened. "Who told you that?" "That's not important." Fiona smiled coldly. "What's important is, it seems I'm not the only one hiding the truth here. Look, my company has faced some legal issues, but it's just a misunderstanding," Dominic tried to explain. "Once I clear everything up, things will get back on track." "Like my marriage to Garrett?" Fiona asked sarcastically. They fell into silence. Finally, Dominic took a deep breath. "I think we both need some time to calm down and think. A lot has happened lately, and we're both somewhat emotional." "Are you breaking up with me?" Fiona asked directly. Dominic avoided answering. "I'm just saying we might need to pause, each handling our own issues. When everything settles down, we'll see what to do next." "It's ironic," Fiona laughed bitterly. "I gave up my marriage for you, and now you want to back out because of some small difficulties." "I didn't ask you to give up your marriage," Dominic defended, raising his voice. "That was your own decision. Don't blame me." "You're right." Fiona suddenly calmed down. "That was my decision. Just as leaving here now is my decision." She stood up, leaving final words. "Good luck, Dominic. It seems we both need to reconsider our choices." Fiona left the coffee shop, wandering aimlessly on the street. She took out her phone, opened Instagram, and discovered that Garrett's account had a new update. In the photo, Garrett and Audrey were standing on the balcony of a seaside villa with a magnificent sunset behind them. The caption was simple yet warm. "New beginnings. with the right person. The photo had received many likes and comments, including well wishes from several famous entrepreneurs and social celebrities. It all looked so real and natural, not like something deliberately arranged to show off or get revenge. There seemed to be real chemistry between Garrett and Audrey, which hurt Fiona more than any revenge could. Fiona closed her phone, feeling an unprecedented loneliness and emptiness. She wasn't sure if she regretted losing Garrett, or the glamorous life she thought she would have, or simply her foolish decisions. But one thing was clear: her choices were irreversible, and Garrett had completely moved on. A week later, Fiona received formal divorce papers sent by the lawyer. The conditions proposed by Garrett were surprisingly fair, even generous. Their common property would be divided according to California law, and Garrett even voluntarily gave up some assets that should have been his. The only condition was that Fiona would relinquish any potential rights to Novell Company shares. Fiona signed almost immediately. She knew she no longer had the right to ask for more, and getting such conditions was already due to Garrett's generosity. Despite this, she still tried to arrange a meeting with Garrett, hoping to have a chance for a private conversation, but Garrett politely refused through his lawyer, indicating that all matters could be handled through the lawyers. Meanwhile, media began widely reporting on Dominic's company being involved in multiple art valuation fraud cases. The FBI formally launched an investigation. Dominic's assets were frozen, and multiple investors filed lawsuits. His art investment company faced bankruptcy, and he himself might face criminal charges. Worse still, Fiona's relationship with Dominic was also dug up by the media, with many reports describing her as a socialite who got involved with an art broker suspected of fraud. Although she wasn't really a socialite, such a label was enough to put her in an awkward position in both her career and social circles. Her marketing company, under the pretext of avoiding negative impact, politely asked her to resign. Within just 2 months, Fiona had lost her husband, lover, job, and social status. She was forced to temporarily move back in with her mother, and by this time, Serena's attitude towards her had also become complex due to the entire incident. "You could have had it all," Serena said during a conversation. "Garrett was a good man, successful in his career, and good to you. But you had to chase those ephemeral things. Now look at what you've got. You have no right to talk to me like that." Fiona countered. "Who encouraged me from the beginning to seek something better? Who always complained that Garrett wasn't rich enough, didn't have enough status?" Serena fell silent, because she had indeed encouraged her daughter to seek a better destination. In her eyes, Garrett was just an ordinary entrepreneur, insufficient to meet her expectations for her daughter's future. Now, she had to face the consequences of her misjudgment and inherent prejudices. "I just wanted you to have a better life," Serena finally defended. "How was I to know that Garrett's company would suddenly become so successful?" "It wasn't sudden, Mom," Fiona said bitterly. "Garrett was always working hard, always building his business. We just ignored his true value because of surface glamour." Serena shook her head. "Anyway, that's all in the past. What's important is what you're going to do now. You can't keep staying here. You need to find a new job, rebuild your life." Fiona knew her mother was right, but starting over was much harder than she had imagined. Her reputation had been damaged by her relationship with Dominic, and many companies were unwilling to risk hiring her. At the same time, she had lost the financial support and lifestyle she was accustomed to in marriage, and was forced to significantly lower her living standards. Meanwhile, both Garrett's life and career were flourishing. Novell's cooperation with the Fertile Group rapidly expanded the company's scale. Their new material technology gained wide recognition in the industry, and the company's value multiplied several times in just a few months. Garrett and Audrey's relationship also evolved from initial business cooperation to genuine affection. The couple often appeared together at various business and social occasions, becoming one of the most envied couples in Los Angeles. 6 months later, in a chance encounter, Fiona met Garrett and Audrey at a high-end restaurant. The brief encounter between the three was filled with awkwardness, but Garrett and Audrey behaved politely and properly. "Hello, Fiona," Garrett greeted briefly, with no emotional color in his voice. "Hello to you both," Fiona responded, trying to maintain composure. "Congratulations on your successful collaboration." "Thank you," Garrett nodded, followed by an awkward silence. Audrey smiled gently. Hope all is well with you. This wasn't out of genuine concern, just politeness for social occasions. Fiona understood this, but still appreciated that they didn't show obvious hostility. I'm fine, Fiona answered, without saying much more. Garrett looked at his watch. We should go. We have an appointment. They briefly said goodbye, leaving Fiona. Watching their retreating figures, Fiona suddenly realized that Garrett had completely let go of the past, while she was still haunted by her choices. What made it more ironic was that the current Garrett was exactly the type of person she had always desired: successful, influential, accepted by high society. And when he was just an ordinary entrepreneur, she couldn't see his value and potential. A year later, a Los Angeles business magazine published an interview with Garrett. In the article, Garrett talked about Novell's growth journey and his views on innovation in traditional manufacturing. When asked about his personal life, Garrett simply said, "Every turning point in life is an opportunity for us to re-examine our values and life direction." In the photo, Garrett and Audrey stood in front of Novell's new headquarters, both looking confident and happy. This image contrasted sharply with Fiona's current life. She had found a new job at a small PR firm, earning only half her previous salary, and her social circle had significantly shrunk. Dominic had completely disappeared from the public eye, reportedly facing the possibility of long-term imprisonment under multiple charges. I heard Garrett and Audrey are engaged, Serena mentioned during a dinner, carefully observing her daughter's reaction. Fiona just nodded. I saw the news. I hope they're happy. Do you really mean that? Serena asked in surprise. Yes, I really do, Fiona sighed. Our marriage is over. He has the right to pursue his own happiness. And he deserves better than what I gave him. Serena studied her daughter's expression. Do you regret it? Fiona was silent for a moment, then shook her head. Regret is meaningless. I made a mistake. Now I must face the consequences. That's life. You've changed, Fiona, Serena commented. The old you would never have talked like this. The old me was too foolish and shallow. Fiona smiled bitterly. I cared too much about surface things, ignoring truly important values. That night, Fiona stood alone on the balcony, looking at the city lights. She recalled that family gathering, the moment when she announced, I want to introduce everyone to my new boyfriend. I've separated from this waste of space. She thought she had seized the initiative, thought she had found a shortcut to a better life. But reality gave her a heavy lesson. There are no shortcuts to success and happiness, and the price of betrayal and infidelity was far heavier than she had imagined. Garrett had moved on, with new love and a successful career, while Fiona had to face the consequences of her choices alone. This wasn't a fairy tale. There was no easy forgiveness and fresh start, only real life and irreversible decisions. Meanwhile, in a seaside villa at the other end of Los Angeles, Garrett and Audrey were planning their future together. When Audrey asked if he still thought about the past, Garrett just shook his head. Some things are worth remembering, others are worth forgetting. What's important is that we're together now, walking towards a shared future. He didn't mention Fiona's name, because that relationship had completely become part of the past. In Garrett's world, betrayal wasn't a mistake that could be forgiven, but an unbridgeable chasm. He had closed that door and would never look back. If this story has resonated with you, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating content. We look forward to seeing you in our next story.